Yo. Check it. Yo, check the method of this shit right here one time. Sparking your brain cells to the utmost. Unlimited epidemics being spreaded. No, I'm trying to add on for y'all niggas. Yo, fuse another 5 elements to search for the higher intelligence. Women walk around celibate, living irrelevant. The most benevolent king, communicating through your dreams. Mental pictures been painted, Allah's heard and seen everywhere. Throughout your surrounding atmosphere, troposphere, thermosphere, stratosphere. Can you imagine for one single idea? Everything appeared here. Understanding makes my truth crystal clear. Innocent black immigrants locked in howling tenements. 85% tenants dependent, welfare recipients. Stapleton's been stamped as a concentration camp. At night I walk through third eyes bright as a street lamp. Electric micros, robotic probes, taking telescope pictures of the globe. Babies getting pierced with microchips stuffed inside their earlobes. Then examinated, blood contaminated, vaccinated, lies fabricated, exaggerated, authorization, food and drug administration, testing poison in prison population. My occupation is to stop the inauguration of Satan. Some planet that was waiting, so I come to slay men like Bartholomew, cause every particle is physical, article is diabolical to the last visible molecule. A space night like bomb, consume planets like Unicron, blasting photon bombs from the arm like Galvatron.
United Nations, gunfire, scout patient, formulating rap, plural, acapella, occupation, conquer land like Napoleon. Military bomb vest, we want sanitary food, planetary conquest. Thug people's on some hardcore body shit. Get your shit together for the fucking Illuminati hit. Dreams is free and escape is sleep. For a fool, peak jewels, keep tools for tough time. The ruler rough mind, elevate, stay behind. The sun gotta shine, keep on, cremate the whole Babylon. Time's up, move on. Kings on your pawn, checkmate. No fakes, approach through the gate, case closed. Fakes get froze when it comes time. Chosen ones
we have such hatred for the enemy that even without planning unconsciously, we can attack him. If you go to the rebellion in Watts in 1965, here you'll see a clear example. I mean, every night before August 1965, policemen come in our community, they whoop up on our heads, do like they want to us. We stand there, look and mumble to ourselves. We don't decide to plan, attack the police, nothing. We just mumble. One night in August, they come, they arrest a brother who is drunk, you understand? The brother pushes them, they use some force, which is necessary in their job to bring the brother under control, and the entire community goes off. I mean, they burn. I mean, they shoot at the police. I mean, they back the police outside the community. They call it a National Guard, and they throw Molotov cocktails of National Guard. They take over the entire community. All of this unplanned and spontaneous. Do you know what will happen when these Africans plan it?
It's over.
The point then must be clear. We are saying, first of all, that in Pan-Afrikanism we have to struggle. And since we're struggling unconsciously, it behooves us to struggle consciously, to plan our struggle. Certainly no one in America can deny this. The statement is clear. No African, not even an individual African in this country, has made any advancement without the shedding of the blood of the masses of our people, whether the confrontation was violent or non-violent. This must be properly understood. Comes to get confused. We make no advancement in America without shedding blood. I mean, to sit in a filthy 5 and 10 cent store where you want to, you got to shed your blood. To sit on a bus just like everybody else where you pay the same amount of money, you have to shed your blood. Even if you're rich and you got money and you want to live anywhere you want to live in this country and you're African, you got to shed your blood. I mean, even to get your children to school where you pay taxes just like everybody else, you got to shed your blood. And to get the most sacred aspect of what they call democracy, the vote, you got to shed your blood. Nobody sitting in this room can show me one instance where we Africans have made an advance in this country without shedding our blood. And what we say is that the shedding of the blood is unconscious. It makes no sense. Look, logic at least will impose itself upon us. If you got to shed your blood in the 20s, in the 30s, in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, unconsciously, logic will tell you, better you get together, let's plan it one time, shed our blood, and destroy the capitalist system.
Brother Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, I used to always say, was second to the last sincere leader we had. The last one would be Attorney Alton Maddox. Prior to Alton Maddox, I believe that Kwame Ture was the last sincere leader that we had. He wasn't in it for money. He wasn't in it for fame. He was in it to help the people. He made a lot of political and ideological transitions throughout his life, you know, starting with SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, becoming involved with the Panthers, the Civil Rights Struggle, and ultimately becoming a Pan-Africanist. He changed his name from Stokely Carmichael to Kwame Ture because to show respect for two of his Pan-Africanist teachers, Kwame Nkrumah and Sekou Touré, the president of Guinea. Very, very wonderful brother, very, very sincere brother. The piece that was just played is critical because what he was trying to get African people to see is that this struggle is not going to be a nonviolent struggle. Okay, you don't have nonviolent revolutions. The whole process of a revolution is based upon a need for change. And that need for change is coming from the oppressed against the oppressor. And the oppressor is so used to being able to control the oppressed that he will not bear any strategy under his control to put them back in their place. So as he said, the shedding of blood is absolutely necessary for revolution to take place. It may not be the first stage of the revolution, but it ultimately is going to have to be a part of that revolution. Why is this so key? Because a lot of black people have a romantic idea of revolution. They think that somehow they can convince their oppressors to become their friends. They think that they can pray out of their condition. They can march out of their condition. They can vote out of their condition. They can negotiate their way out of their condition. Revolutions are not based on negotiations. Revolutions are based on powers of struggle, struggles of power, point blank period. One group is trying to force the other group to do what it doesn't want to do. The oppressed are trying to force the oppressor to do what the oppressor doesn't want to do. The oppressor is trying to force the oppressed to do what the oppressed don't want to do. So it always resorts to violence. There has never been a peaceful revolution. Even when you study Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace, as taught, you see that he had to die in order for his message to get out into the world. Islam, Hebrewism, when you look at African independence struggle, okay, when you look at Vietnam, when you look at the struggles of North Korea, South Korea, Tibet, no matter where you go, it has to be violent in the imaginary world and in the real world. So what we have to do as African people is we have to begin to prepare ourselves psychologically for the coming war. Prepare yourself for the coming race war. Okay, it may not be on this continent, it may take place elsewhere, but some of us are going to have to die for others to live. The problem is a lot of African people are not willing to sacrifice their lives so that their children can have a better one. Many of us are selfish, and we do not want to get involved in any type of a struggle that we directly do not benefit from. It is the essential selfishness of the Negro. Build schools for what? I've been graduated. Okay? Open factories for what? I already got a job. Provide these young brothers with father figures for what? I didn't have my dad and I made it. We do not want to get involved in anything that requires us to sacrifice for the next generation unless we get something out of it. Unless we are sacrificing for another race. When black people get involved in white people's struggles, we're willing to give up something. When we get involved in Hispanics people's struggles and Oriental people's struggles, we're willing to give up something. Look what's going on with Libya right now. Black people sending money, they sending clothes, they sending support to Libya. But we need money and clothes in the black community. Why you ain't sending it next door? Why you ain't sending it down the street? We're willing to help anybody else but ourselves because we absolutely cannot stand ourselves. Black people hate being black more than they hate anything else. And the last thing you can get somebody to do is to try to defend that which they hate. How in the hell are you going to get me to get involved in a black revolution when I wish I wasn't black? How are you going to get me to properly care for my black child when I wish my child was not so dark? It is the essential hatred of blackness itself. The essential hatred of blackness itself that has us in a predicament that we are in. Stokely Carmichael was trying to get us to see the reality of revolution. He wanted us to see it for what it is. People die in revolutions. People go to jail in revolutions. People have people they love murdered, castrated, sent to prison. And I think in the black conscious community, we romanticize revolution too much. Nobody willingly participates in a revolution. They do it because it's necessary. If you read some of the interviews that was had by brothers and sisters who participated in the revolutions of the African independence, whether it was the Mau Mau, Ghana, the Congo, South Africa, if they could have, they would have used another way to get freedom. The problem was what? The only way is through bloodshed. They did what they had to do to get to where they wanted to be, which was freedom. But guess what? Freedom leaves trauma. Freedom leaves scars. Freedom leaves battle marks. After freedom, you might be missing a leg or arm on a loved one. So we don't want to romanticize freedom. We don't want to romanticize revolution. Okay? It's bloody, it's gory, it's disgusting, it's psychologically traumatizing. But guess what? It's the only way to independence. And so we're going to go willingly into that fight because we know it's the only way to get to where we need to be. But we don't do it not expecting to come out alive. We don't do it not expecting to come out without scars. We know some of us won't make it. We know a lot of us will have scars. But guess what? Our children are worth it. And so we do it anyway. Mr. Garvey said that the work that we do is not for us. We do what we do for generations yet unborn. The best sacrifice you can make is to give your life so that your children can live in freedom.
Man. And that just tied back into what we were talking about earlier. And that's what can we sacrifice? Could we even go to the point of sacrificing our own experience, you know, for the collective, you know? And if you can't sacrifice, what is it that's making you cling on to that which holds you back? You know what I mean? So
In
yes.
fact, Guantanamo Buddha, who was a black man, always talked about attachments. And he says humanity suffers primarily because of their attachments. And when you study revolutionaries, true revolutionaries, before they go into war, what do they do with their family? They send them into hiding. Why? Because if they get a phone call saying, I got your wife, they may sell out the whole revolution so that their wife can live. So they send them into hiding. You must get rid of anything that can be used to make you change your mind about what you got to do. You have to get rid of the attachments. You got a nice car, get rid of it. Nice house, get rid of it. Certain relationship, get rid of it. Your wives, your women, and your children, you got to send them into hiding. Because anything you attach to, anything you love, will be used as the corkscrew that they turn into your heart to make you sell out the struggle. And until you vacate with all your attachments, you will never be free enough to really struggle in a revolution. Because revolution ultimately means loss. Losing everything you got to achieve an ultimate goal. And if there's anything you're not willing to part for that cause, you shouldn't be in it. As Dr. King said, if a man doesn't have something for which he's willing to die, he's not fit to live. See, a coward is who? Somebody who thinks twice before they make the sacrifice. And what makes them think twice? Their attachments to whatever they don't want to part with. So to be a revolutionary, you have to do what? You got to love freedom and justice and independence more than your own family. You got to love them more. Because if not, guess what? You'll part with the struggle to preserve the family. You'll part with the struggle to preserve your life. You'll part with the struggle to preserve your job. You'll part with the struggle to preserve your house. If there's anything that you are not willing to part with in support of the revolution, then you're really not committed to the revolution. You might as well get out right now. Because guess what? Your enemy will find it and use it against you. So we got to part with anything that can keep us from our ultimate goal and our focus in the struggle.
That falls under that political, military strategy
Yes, indeed.
that you was talking about in your
Yes,
lecture.
indeed.
So
Yes,
yeah,
indeed.
that was a beautiful analysis.
Heaven's most modest assets. Never got it. Reveal lands with the sands hottest. The hottest. York's the hottest. They post like they know got it. My bread is sharp like sketches of art. And I bet you we spar like a matchbook weapons you smart. Thought beams and saltines, definitely dark. Money and drugs, cops and cooks separately parked. Ill like an hour, bodies on it. That nigga that got he wanted. Thought he was cheesed up, but probably fronted. Properly stunning. Meet at the summit, rest his stomach. Assemble campfire style, burning brand new hunters. Fully obsessed though, metal head like Destro. He played a Veslo, club of Rome from get-go. Columbia trained to hit flow, roll, scholar Calypso. That gold collar with info. Into the tallies, a bag of niggas for doing collie. Selling clothes and tolly, stepping out and Bruno Molly. Taekwondo judo hobbies, witness said he knew the body. About to mob me, conspiracy, my moves are godly. In his likeness, no way this can fight this. Physically righteous, cold clutch with tight fists. Night of the living crisis, I know who Christ is.
Formats of guys like says, with science mic tips. Electrolyte seed, corn roots at light speed. Engulf nice sweet thoughts, sandwich till mics bleed. 225th strike theme, I team. Let's pull together like night strings, night king.
I'm a sandstorm taking human form, a crown of thorns formed on my beats first born. My meat flowing, keep going. Heat seek, see boy. Reborn, freeborn. So forever be warm, or forever be mourned. I'm cleverly on, but God is a heavenly charm. So hope the weather be warm. I'm cold. Behold, Dante, the ancient and old. They threw my sand in the fire. I came out gold. Bold man at the gate, with my hand in the leg. The other full of sand, stranded on the land of hay. Wet and dry, man, it's so hard getting by. People don't want to try, they just sitting getting high. In front of the crystal ball, watching Bill Clinton lie. A well-respected guy, peeking with my naked eye. My fate ain't confined under space and time. The earth belongs to God, he said vengeance is mine. My effect is bright, I just blessed the mic. Live right, failed to die, got an F in life. We done fell and we rose, what the hell and we froze. We in our own purgatory, and the heavens is closed. Wanna battle the pro, now we travel the globe. Stepping out, shadows blow, unraveling codes. At the speed of light, I can read and write, and open doors to death with the keys to life.